Hello, fourth grade, and welcome to lesson 3-2. In this lesson, we're going to focus on how we can estimate the product, especially when we're using either bigger numbers or numbers that are not easy to use as mental math.
How can you estimate when you multiply? Mr. Hector's class sold calendars and notepads for 3 weeks as a class fundraiser. About how much did Mr. Hector's class make selling calendars, selling notepads? Is it always necessary to get an exact answer to a problem? No, sometimes an estimate is all that is needed. Mr. Hector just needs to know about how much money they made. First, estimate how many calendars C were sold. Add together the number of calendars sold each week. They sold 164 calendars in all. Round to estimate $4 times 164. Estimate by using compatible numbers. Is 164 closer to 150 or 200?
Select your answer.
$164 is closer to 150. 4 times 150 equals 600. Mr. Hector's class made about $600 selling calendars. Then, estimate how many notepads N were sold. Add together the number of notepads sold each week. They sold 1,428 notepads in all. Round to estimate $3 times 1,428. To the nearest thousand, 1,428 rounds to 1,000. 3 times 1,000 equals 3,000. Mr. Hector's class made about $3,000 selling notepads. Is the estimated earning for notepads greater or less than the actual amount? The estimated amount is less than the actual amount, since 1,428 was rounded down. Since 1,428 is not close to 1,000, it would have been better to round to the nearest hundred.
Okay, so when we are using compatible numbers, we're using numbers that are close to our actual answer or close to the actual number that we're working with, but it's easier to work with. So let's stop. Before we do our guided practice, we're going to go ahead and go over some of our notes from this lesson. So again, always put your lesson title and number at the top. When estimating a product, you can use rounding and compatible numbers to find your estimated answer. Compatible numbers are close to the number you're working with, so they're close to the real number, but they're easier to use when you estimate. They're not as complicated. They're simpler numbers, usually groups of hundreds or thousands, something that's easy to work with and to use when you try and do mental math. So I'm going to pull the example that they were working on for selling the calendars. So all 3 weeks, this is how many they sold each week, equaled the number of calendars. So when we added these numbers together, we got 164. Now to find our compatible numbers, we rounded, we wanted to see what's it going to round to. So 150, 164 is between 100 and 200. 164 is close to 150, so I'll go with 150 because that's an easy number for me to work with, and it's close to my actual number. If I round up, my answer is going to be too high. It's going to be greater than my actual number. If I round down, my answer is going to be a little bit less than my actual number. But the closer I am to the real number that I'm working with, the more accurate my answer will be. So instead of doing 4 times 164, I can do it times 150. So 4 or 150 times 4 It's easier to work with because 150 is a compatible number. It's close to my real number, but it's not exactly it. So 150 times 4 gave us 600. So they made about $600 selling calendars. So sometimes you just want to find out around how much you have. You don't need the exact answer all the time. When you don't need the exact answer, estimating and using compatible numbers makes the math much quicker and easier. And it gives you an answer that's close to your real answer. Now, for our guided practice, the first question said, Mr. Harm's class sold 1,275 items at $5 per item. One of the students calculated that the class raised $2,375. Is the student's calculation reasonable? Explain. So we need to find out, is 2,375 a reasonable product when we multiply 1,275 times 5, and why? Okay, so let's use our rounding. So 1,275, let's round out to the nearest 1,000, for example. So if we say 1,000 times 5 will give us 5,000. Is 5,000 close to 2,375? It is not close. It's actually really far away. It's almost twice as much. So we can say the student's answer is not reasonable because 2,375 is not close to 5,000. So 5,000 was our estimate when we rounded to the nearest 1,000. When we compared it to the number that the student gave, we found that those numbers are very far from each other. And so that was not a reasonable estimate. Now for numbers 2 through 5, we're going to estimate the product. So we can estimate using rounding or using compatible numbers. So this, I can either round it to the nearest 100, or I can round it, I can use 120 as a compatible number. So let's round it to the nearest 100. So let's make this 6 times 100. That'll give you 600 as your estimate. For the next one, 4 times 2,610. I can change that to 4 times 2,600, or I can change it to 4 times 2,500. Because 2,600 is closer to 2,500 than it is to 3,000. Now I know 4 times 25 is 100, plus these 2 zeros on the end. So 2,500 times 4, 2,500 times 2 is going to be 5,000, plus another 5,000 is going to give me 10,000. Over here, 538 times 3, I can change it to 500 times 3 by rounding to the nearest 100. I know 5 times 3 is 15 with 2 zeros on the end, so I add 2 zeros on the end. My answer is 1,500. For 314 times 7, I can round it again to the nearest 100, and this can become 300 times 7. I know 3 times 7 is 21, plus those 2 zeros, so I add those 2 zeros on the end, and I get 2,100. So when we are estimating our answers, we can either round or we can use compatible numbers. So remember, a compatible number is a number that's close by. It's not your exact number, but it will help you get to your answer or close to your answer a lot more quickly than if you were working with the exact numbers and having to stack and multiply that way. If you have any questions, 4th grade, let me know. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. Bye-bye.